Hello, my name is Nalini Sharma, and I'm the coordinator of the Strategic Approach to International Chemicals Management, otherwise known as SAICM. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the Beyond process and the latest developments on the 5th session of the International Conference on Chemicals Management, ICCM5, as well as the ongoing work of the SAICM Secretariat. Allow me to begin by noting that the 2020 goal of SAICM to achieve sound management of chemicals was not met. An independent evaluation of SAICM found that while there has been some progress in a number of areas in terms of strengthening capacity, commitment, technical knowledge, and political will to implement and mainstream chemicals into national planning, there were some key drivers that presented a challenge to the realization of the 2020 target. These included the widening gap between developed and developing countries, the need for inspiring political will to act at national levels, greater sharing of knowledge and information, securing stable finances and resources, strengthening collaboration and including all stakeholders in SAICM processes, work and its structure, improving the monitoring framework to assess progress, and addressing emerging policy issues. As 2020 approached, there was broad agreement that the goal would not be achieved. The 4th session of the International Conference on Chemicals Management, ICCM4, held in September 2015, initiated an intersessional process to prepare recommendations on the future of SAICM and sound management of chemicals and waste beyond 2020. For consideration by ICCM5 in October 2020. The 4th meeting of that intersessional process was expected to develop recommendations to be considered at ICCM5. Fast forward to 2021, and as most of you are aware by now, the 4th session of the intersessional process, IP4, and ICCM5, as I mentioned earlier, which were originally scheduled for 2020, have been postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The ICCM5 Bureau and stakeholders have yet to decide on a new date for the conference. However, in the interim, the Secretariat continues to execute on its mandate and consult closely with stakeholders across the board. In order to ensure the global momentum for the sound management of chemicals, we have tried to ensure that stakeholders remain engaged in the development of future SAICM instrument on 2020. Between October 2020 and February 2021, 4 virtual working groups were held to support the intersessional process. The purpose of the virtual working groups was essentially to develop proposals for tangible outcomes, including identifying gaps, proposals on text, and suggestions for new and alternate text as appropriate. It is important to point out that the virtual working groups were not intended to replace formal face-to-face discussions at IP4 or the negotiations that will take place at ICCM5, but rather to build a common understanding and prepare delegates for the foreseeable negotiations. In February 2021, the first phase of these discussions was completed with some important observations by stakeholders and key issues. Briefly, the virtual working group on targets, indicators, and milestones agreed further deliberation is needed to develop draft targets, incorporating a smart approach before extensive work can be dedicated towards indicators and milestones. However, it was noted that using common indicators is an opportunity to monitor progress on common goals and targets, such as the links between biodiversity and chemicals and waste. Discussion among participants on governance and mechanisms to support implementation highlighted that governments should establish national plans of action for implementation on an interministerial or interinstitutional basis so that concerned national departments and stakeholder interests are representative and all relevant substantive areas are addressed. It was also suggested that reporting did not become burdensome for governments. Above all, a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder approach was seen as key to implementation. There was also strong support for the strengthening the science policy interface for the chemicals and waste agenda. On issues of concern, there was broad agreement that the emerging policy issues and issues of concern has been very useful in raising the profile of specific issues globally, but that a clear plan of action is needed. There was also broad acknowledgement of the need to strengthen the integrated approach to financing of chemicals and waste, and especially the component related to industry involvement. Another important development in the interim has been the process initiated by the President of ICCM5 to develop recommendations on essential elements of a possible high-level declaration for SAICM's successor. During the discussions in the virtual working group, participants also highlighted that alignment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is critical in moving forward. Sound chemicals and waste management relates and contributes to achieving almost all of the SDGs. For example, SDG 3 on health, SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation, SDG 11 on sustainable cities, and SDG 12 on sustainable consumption and production, amongst others. While the current situation is less than ideal, the SAICM Secretariat has been encouraged by ongoing engagement of stakeholders in the process. Within the context of the integrated approach to financing of chemicals and waste, and in particular the third component on dedicated external financing, the SAICM Secretariat works with the GEF on the upcoming GEF 8 replenishment and the special program for its fifth and subsequent rounds of applications. A major activity that the Secretariat is executing is the project on global best practices on emerging policy issues of concern funded by the GEF. The aim of the project is to accelerate implementation at the national level to achieve the SAICM goal and support early planning for chemicals management within the 2030 agenda. Here I'd like to highlight that since 2019, 40 countries have benefited from the project. We continue our work by convening stakeholders around pertinent issues. We are expanding partnerships with technical and scientific networks, as well as downstream sectors. We are also actively collaborating with the academic community on our increasingly popular Communities of Practice series, and continue to produce a range of knowledge projects, including studies on deepening private sector engagement for the sound management of chemicals and waste. As I end, I just want to highlight that last month, Dr. Anita Breyer assumed the role of President of ICCM5, and we are very excited by her commitment to place the chemicals agenda high on the global agenda alongside climate, biodiversity, and pollution. Going forwards, our program of work aims to place strategic cooperation in key related areas such as biodiversity, climate change, and resource efficiency, circularity, through the work on targets and indicators and issues of concern, which we believe will streamline efforts, avoid duplication, increase visibility of priority topics, and bundle resources to achieve common goals and targets. If you would like more information on our ongoing work, please take a look at our website and also our social media. Thank you very much.